Welcome to Nightmare Echoes. Listen, scream, and embrace your horror obsession. I'm your host, Elazar, and in this episode, Joseph is here to be our travel guide through John Carpenter's The Thing, where freezing temperatures are the least of your problems. How does this version differ from the 1951 classic? Which practical effects remain our favorites? And how should we interpret that cryptic ending? If you dare to follow us, all the links are in the description. Next week on the podcast, The Strangers Chapter 1. But until then, a movie that proves you're not paranoid. Your coworkers really are out to kill you. Hello everybody, welcome to Nightmare Echoes. I'm your host Elazar. I'm joined again by Joseph. Joseph, how's it going?
All things considered, I'm doing okay. The world's a mess.
Yeah, I guess that's true. We are here to talk about The Thing, the 1982 version, although I'm sure we'll talk about everything related to The Thing, because there's a lot about it.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Yeah, but I'm going to hand it over to Joseph, who's going to start us off, and we're just going to talk about it, because it's been around for several decades now, and you've had a chance to see it, so...
All right, so to start things off, what's the coldest you've ever experienced, or like the most snowiest experience you've had?
So I've lived in both Denver and in Providence, Rhode Island. In Providence, Rhode Island, I remember the snow plows coming, and the snow plows for the sidewalks were like 8 feet tall, taller than me, obviously. I would remember walking to work and a police officer seeing me on the road because there's no sidewalks, and he just politely followed me to make sure no one hit me, so walking in the road until I turned the corner. But the funniest cold experience I have is my wife and I, when we first met in AmeriCorps, we were doing a lot of different volunteer projects, and one of them that we did a lot was the Denver Children's Museum. And we were there on one of the snowy days. It was super cold, mittens, scarves, head covering. And then they told us, hey, just so you know, I know it's crazy, but there's a ice cream truck outside. And we're like, but it's snowy. And they go, yeah, but it's free ice cream they're donating. We just need 2 people to work it. And we're like, oh, we're there. So we spent the day saying ice cream, and people going, are you nuts? It's freezing outside. And then Jess would go, it's free. And they're like, don't mind if I do.
Sure.
Which is the funniest thing. And I was excited to share that. Yeah.
Okay.
And you?
Yeah. So we rented a cabin in my neck of the woods, and we're getting it ahead of time, probably about 3 months in advance, just to make sure we got one, and with a plan of going snowshoeing. And of course, the day of, there's a blizzard. We probably saw 8 to 15 cars that just were blown off the side of the road. We made it in my wife's little car, and we got up there, and I think the highs were probably maybe 0 degrees Fahrenheit, and we took our dog out there with us. She has a little coat and everything, and we weren't out there too long because it was really cold. And then we got back home from that little trip, little weekend getaway. First, we thought that, oh God, we gave her dog frostbite in her tail. But she had what's called limber tail. And it's basically when their tail is kind of hanging instead of wagging upright.
Okay.
But yeah, it's called limber tail. So people don't freak out and get your dog some kind of version of an NSAID, and they'll be fine in a couple of days.
Okay.
So yeah, that's my little story there. So.
All right,
let's get into it.
I wanted to talk about where it all began. A author by the name of John W. Campbell Jr., though he initially published his story that the movie is based on, titled Who Goes There, in 1938 under a pseudonym Don A. Stewart. A little background, he was a college student at MIT, though he finally got his physics degree from Duke University, maybe because he was writing a lot of short sci-fi fantasy stories. He eventually became the editor of Astounding Science magazine, where he published most of his work. While publisher, he published the early works of some luminary authors in the sci-fi genre: Isaac Asimov, Arthur C. Clarke, A.E. Van Vogt, and Theodore Sturgeon. The themes and elements of the initial story, it's just rife with cosmic horror in the vein of H.P. Lovecraft. Suspicion, paranoia, and dread featured throughout the story, all of which John Carpenter captures in his film. Eventually, it was made into its first feature film in 1951. The film is titled The Thing from Another World. This obviously had a big impact on a young Carpenter, which I think in an interview he said he watched it at the age of like 4 or 5.
Okay.
The rights for the story were purchased for $1,250. They change up a lot of things. It's, of course, made after World War II, so the early stages of the Cold War was going on when the 1951 film was made. They changed the setting. It was, instead of Antarctica, where the book and Carpenter's film take place, it was based out of an Air Force base in Alaska, and then they go to a research station near the North Pole, closer to the Russians. But yeah, military airmen are featured more in this film, and they didn't have the technology and special effects, so the alien becomes a vegetable vampire meets a Frankenstein's monster. So it has that kind of gothic horror aspect, kind of like a lot of the monster movies, the old Universal monster movies had. It's just this terrifying other creature.
He's really tall.
Yes.
It's very dark when they show him a lot. So he was scary back then.
Oh yeah. But yeah, the beginning of Campbell's story is how it's seen in The Thing from Another World, where they actually locate the spaceship and the alien, they bring it back to base, and then it thaws and then comes to life and wreaks havoc. One notable thing about the 1951 film is that it was one of the first films to feature a full body stunt where somebody was on fire. Carpenter pays an homage to that scene in his film. But many of the themes and elements that made the story, the paranoia, the fear, are pretty much gone in the 1951 film. It's more about the military men coming in and saving the day, which might be a little bit of propaganda in the monster movie.
Sure. You do have someone saying maybe we should burn it, and then a scientist saying, "Oh, but you're going to ruin someone's Nobel Prize."
Sure, which they kind of paint the head scientist as kind of like a side villain or maybe like an anti-hero because he just wants to study it.
Sure. One other note, the person on fire with a full body suit, a new record just hit this year where Final Destination Bloodlines put the oldest person ever to be in a full body suit set on fire at a woman at 77 years old for their opening disaster scene, which I think is amazing. Like, go for her. Good job.
Okay, so on this, is the actual, is it a stunt person that's portraying that actress that is 70, or is it actually the stunt person that is in their 70s?
All I know is the person that was set on fire is a 77-year-old woman.
Fucking hell, dude. Yeah.
Yeah, good job, right?
Yeah. All right. So I'd like to spend a little bit of time on the creatives behind the film.
Okay.
First, let's go with the director, John Carpenter. He has been talked about on this podcast before. If you go back to episode 14, he was born in New York, and he eventually moved to Kentucky, where he grew up most of his life. And his father was a music professor. He was interested in making films from a young age, and he eventually did 2 years of undergrad in Kentucky, but eventually moved to California to attend USC School of Film. And he dropped out near his final semester to turn his student film into his first feature, titled Dark Star, in 1974. And that film actually went on to make a modest success for the amount of screens it was released to. That episode 14 I mentioned, that was, of course, Halloween, 1978. And I just wanted to mention one little Easter egg that was not in that episode. There's a scene where Lori is watching television with Tommy, and they are watching the 1951 Thing from Another World. Carpenter went on to do some TV films and some other films. Wanted to note that in 1979, he released a film made for TV, Elvis the Movie, with Kurt Russell starring as Elvis, and that was the first time he worked with Kurt Russell.
Did they do that again? Like Kurt Russell plays an Elvis impersonator eventually, right? 10,000 Miles to Graceland, is that right?
I do not know. I didn't delve fully into all of Kurt Russell's films.
3,000 Miles to Graceland. It's him and Kevin Costner, both dressed up as Elvis on the cover.
I think I've seen the cover, but yeah. I know, a significant amount of Kurt Russell's films, but I don't know all of them, unfortunately.
Sure, right.
Obviously, Carpenter and Russell did work together a lot. That's one thing I noticed from the behind-the-scene docs and stuff that I watched, is that he worked with a lot of the same crew behind the scenes.
Sure.
The thing we're talking about today is also his first studio film. All of his other films were done independently and then got picked up, or he was approached by a producer to make the film. So next person I wanted to talk about is Rob Bottin. He did the practical effects, makeup, sculpture of the creature. He worked under the great Rick Baker when they worked together on the 1976 King Kong. While working with Baker, Bottin, he actually portrayed a character in Star Wars A New Hope. He was the tallest Bith alien in the Cantina band scene.
Nice.
Yeah. But basically, how Bottin got in contact with Carpenter, he worked on a movie called Rock and Roll High School.
Rock and roll high school.
Where Dean Cundey, the cinematographer for the thing and had worked with Carpenter on his past work, put them together. And that's how they met. And Bottin went on to work on Carpenter's The Fog in 1980. And he also, prior to working on The Thing, he worked with Joe Dante on his film The Howling that came out in 1981. Let's talk about the composer Ennio Morricone. He's one of the most prolific composers in film and television. He is known for his sparse atmospheric compositions in his films that he worked on. Notable work prior, he worked with Sergio Leone, Dollars Trilogy. He worked on Dario Argento's Animal Trilogy, and he also worked on Exorcist II, The Heretic, 1977. But he's done many more. Finally, want to mention Bill Lancaster, who did the screenwriting for Carpenter's version of the film. He's the son of the early Hollywood actor Burt Lancaster, and he also wrote the screenplays for The Bad News Bears and The Bad News Bears Go to Japan.
I grew up with those movies.
Yeah. So this brings us to 1982. The movie was released on June 25th with a budget of about $15 million. It was filmed in Stanley, British Columbia, Canada, also the ice fields north of Juneau, Alaska in the US, and of course on studio lots and the Universal Studios in Hollywood, California. The scenes in the studio were actually filmed in a refrigerated set around 40 degrees Fahrenheit, and the humidity was increased to better show their breath.
Which is a good detail in the movie.
Oh, yeah. It makes it believable.
It is so cold, yeah.
Which it would be very fucking cold in Antarctica. So, as kind of already mentioned, it's set in Antarctica in a scientific research station. In the opening scene, they rescue a sled dog that is being shot at from a helicopter by another research group. But then they take that dog in, and they soon learn it's actually an alien life form that can assume the forms of other living creatures it's encountered. And this causes one of the members to lose it, and the rest to question who's who. Paranoia, fear ensue, and they have only one choice, really, to fight for their survival. And they also realize to fight for the rest of humanity as well.
So can I pet that dog?
Can I pet that dog?
Damn, man.
I asked my kids when we're watching it, hey, can I pet that dog?
Did they get it?
And he looks nice. They got it, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So let's get into it. Let's break down some of the key scenes of the movie.
Sure.
So as mentioned in the synopsis, they're being hunted by Norwegians.
Yeah.
They refer to them as Swedes.
Right.
But they're corrected.
Yeah. So in that scene, you don't know why they're hunting this dog. They're like going after this dog. They're shooting it with a rifle from the helicopter. My dad was like, these guys suck. I'm like, they're in a moving helicopter shooting a rifle at a running Alaskan Husky or whatever kind of dog it is. And that's not easy. But then the very next shot is 50 yards away. I'm like, okay, they do suck. But when they get on the ground, the guy somehow lets the grenade go backwards. He blows up his own helicopter. I'm like, what are these guys doing? I thought it was also interesting that to join in the gunfight, one of the crew, Gary...
Commander Gary, yeah.
Yeah, he breaks a window to start firing outside. I mean, where are you going to get a new window? It's freaking cold out there. That's a bad idea. But yeah.
We'll see later on that they have a lot of supplies.
That's true.
So I don't know if they had extra windows. I'm assuming if he did break a window, because that's a good point, that they probably had extra windows.
Well, they have one guy named Windows, but that's not going to do it.
That's true. That's true. I did like that most scenes or movies, when somebody's speaking another language, they put subtitles on what they're saying.
Yeah.
But we are left not knowing because there's no translation.
Right.
It has been translated since on what he's saying.
Sure.
I didn't write down the exact, but basically the guy is saying, "Get away from that dog. It's not a real dog. You idiots. Get away from the dog."
Right. And what's interesting, and this movie does a lot of cool mystery that we'll get into with unanswered questions. And I just want to bring up, and even one, maybe just a little bit here, that the prequel that they came out with called The Thing, was like 2011, goes out of its way to answer all these questions and really kills the mystery of this movie, or is just unnecessary. And some of the scenes were pretty much copied from this. Now, they did do a good job of recreating that base, the Norwegian base, which I think was cool. And I continually joke the only reason to really watch that film is Mary Elizabeth Winstead. But I just think it was unnecessary that this movie, because this movie does a great job of making a lot of things ambiguous. And why did this happen? That movie goes out of the way to answer the questions we never really wanted answered.
Sure. Another thing I want to note, you mentioned the grenade.
Yeah.
Also, temperatures, cold, and I can't remember if he's in gloves or mittens.
Sure.
Being in that environment with gloves on, you definitely fumble stuff, so I can totally understand. And also being a bad shot, they're scientists. Not saying scientists can't also be know, trained snipers or anything, but more than likely, he spent a lot of time in his research doing his PhDs and getting that alphabet behind his name that, maybe didn't have the most time to practice shooting from a helicopter at a moving target.
He needs to play more Call of Duty. Okay.
That totally existed back in the 80s too.
Right, yeah.
But also the other thing too, also to even add more difficulty to that shot,
of course,
is that the dog is running on snow. So it's not like that's a solid surface. He's falling into the snow, jumping up and down basically when snow's that deep. So yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm totally joking. Like I was defending him, and then the very next shot I was like, okay, maybe that was a bad shot.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, fear is running through the dude's head, right? He knows way more that they're about to find out, and so I can't imagine fear, trembling. I don't know, man.
Sure. And then at the Norwegian base, they send McCready over with one other guy to go investigate that base, and they get a lot of journals, but they're all written in a foreign language. We see that anybody that seems to survive whatever happened decided to kill themselves. Then they find this giant piece of ice that they've dug up that had something in it, which has then escaped, which I love how this gives you this eerie feeling, like what is bad enough that you would decide to kill yourself? What could be in this giant block of ice? It sets up for a really good movie.
Yeah. It's McCready and the doctor, Dr. Copper.
Okay.
That go there to investigate the base. There were a couple of scenes. I don't think they have filming of it, but they did have some still shots I saw of two other bodies they found there. One was kind of a transformed body. I think it was supposed to be like a jump scare where they open up a cabinet and it falls. And then another one was another body impaled in a wall with a shovel.
Wow.
But yeah, they get those notes in the videotape, but they also bring back such a cool sculpture by Bottin that half morphing, like two-faced morphing together. It's just like a burned corpse.
It's super creepy.
I know it's creepy, but I love that shit.
Oh yeah, no, in a good way. The practical effects are good.
Oh yeah, so good.
Like what the heck happened here?
Yeah. I don't know if I would have brought it back, but yeah.
Yeah.
I guess I want to bring it back for the research. But yeah, they bring it back because they're like, what the fuck's going on? So I know this is a scene that pissed off a lot of people.
With the dogs?
With the dog transformation, yeah.
Sure.
But it was filmed. They had the dog trainers and they had the Humane Society there. So yeah, they had all the precautions, make sure everything was, legit above board.
Right. It was a fake alien, guys. It's okay.
No. What are you talking about? No, they actually killed an alien, man.
Right. It's like they really gouged eyes out in 28 days later.
So I just love the quote. It's Clark. He's a dog handler in this movie.
Yeah.
They rescued this dog, and it's kind of walking around the base. They finally ask him to put it up with the other dogs. So he puts it up, but then soon after, the dogs start freaking out. And he goes back there to check on the dogs. The viewer sees the Norwegian sled dog transforming, splitting its face open, tentacles coming out, and all the dogs are freaking the fuck out. There's one dog that's actually like kind of trying to open up a hole.
It's biting. Yeah, it's biting the fence away.
Yeah. So it's even with the animals, it shows like the innate fear you would
Mhm.
have with something like this taking place in front of you. But yeah, so when Clark goes back to check on the dogs, because obviously everybody hears him barking, he sees what he sees and he runs back and he says, "I don't know what the hell is in there, but it's weird and pissed off, whatever it is." He's obviously kind of freaked out.
Yeah, they call for the flamethrower, and Childs is like, he wants what? He's like, you heard me. He wants the flamethrower. It's pretty crazy because,
Yeah.
I mean, it's cold out, sure, but you're burning down your building, which is your shelter. That could be a problem. So they fry it, and then they put it out right away.
Yeah.
And people are like, wait, is it dead yet? Can we fry it a little longer? I'm like, yeah, but you're risking burning down your whole building.
It's true.
Which is crazy.
True. And before he flamed it, too, McCready, Kurt Russell's character, shot a couple of shotgun blasts into it as well. But you just go watch it, and it turns into this mass with eyes all over it.
Got tentacles everywhere.
It kind of almost comes out like a piranha plant from like Super Mario Bros. It's just, yeah. But yeah, not all the dogs died. This practical effect was actually primarily done by another artist, Stan Winston, who had previously worked on Planet of the Apes and also Friday the 13th Part 2 just before this film.
It's a good one.
So at this point, the characters know why the Norwegians were after the dog. That's where they're like, oh, what the hell? They were right. The Norwegians were always right. So yeah, another big amazing scene is a resuscitation scene. Leading up to this, people are getting kind of paranoid at this point. Blair, who is portrayed by Wilford Brimley, is the doctor head scientist there.
Right.
And he's kind of gone mad and has been isolated into this little outbuilding.
Yeah, and we know in hindsight, he's trying to make sure that no one gets out of there. No one leaves, so this alien can't survive. He's destroying their ability to communicate, and he's trying to make sure they're all stuck there so that they're all going to die, because he's been running this test on a computer to see the probability if this thing gets out, what are the probability that humanity would survive.
Yeah.
And so, while he seems crazy to everybody else, he, at least at this part, has a legit reason to stop them from escaping.
You might say there's method to his madness, right?
Yeah, completely.
So yeah, they've gone out to investigate, and they come back, and people suspect McCready as being an imposter alien.
Yeah.
And he has to kind of break back into the building, so there is another broken window. But then they try to tackle him at one point, and one of the characters, the geologist, Norris, who apparently had a heart condition, falls back and starts going into cardiac arrest. It's interesting because McCready has 5 to 7 sticks of dynamite.
All wrapped in a bundle.
Yeah, wrapped in a bundle that he's holding with an ignited flare, threatening to kill them all if they don't stop trying to capture him. This works at keeping everyone at bay, but everyone is on edge here because no one knows who's real or who's a human, who's an imposter alien at this point, and everybody is suspecting each other. It's adding to the tension of all these scenes from here on out.
One thing they did well in the film, too, to not let us know who it was, is in the scene where the dog goes into someone's room and we see the shadow of the person, that is nobody on the cast. That is someone in the crew that kind of looked like it could have been 2 other people, so that we wouldn't know for certain just because we saw the shadow who it was going to be. And I love that.
Yeah, the person who was a silhouette was Dick Warlock, who portrayed Mike Myers in Halloween 2.
Okay.
And he was also, for this film, Kurt Russell's body double. So that's the tension that's involved here. And you have Norris on the floor having a heart attack. This is kind of also where they go back to do the not the autopsy, but they're trying to resuscitate him.
Right.
It's all kind of being done under duress because Kurt Russell has the dynamite, and at this point when they go back into a room with a table with Norris on it, he now has a flamethrower on, and he has that with the dynamite. And Dr. Cooper starts using the paddles to give him some jolts, and at once he kind of does it for the second time, Norris's chest opens up, and of course the poor doctor's arms go in there, and his arms are bitten off by Norris's torso mouth. Yeah, I don't know what to call it.
Right, yeah. It looks like a bear trap.
Yeah. It just opens up and just chop. They actually filmed that scene with an amputee when he rips his arms back, and yeah, it's just amazing. The transformation, alien, it kind of splits up here because you have Norse's body here.
Oh yeah, that's really good.
Yeah, then like a smaller alien form kind of shoots out from the mouth, the torso mouth, and it's hanging from the ceiling with a likeness of Norris's head, except with sharp dagger-like teeth.
While Norris's actual head starts detaching from the body and goes to the ground,
Yeah.
develops spider-like legs, and stealthily starts walking away for a little bit.
Don't forget the snail eyes that popped out as well.
Oh, yeah, right? Yeah, like antenna kind of thing going on.
Yeah, and that's happening that's what the viewer sees, but all the characters on the other side of the table, so they don't actually see the head come off at the
Right.
time. They just start immediately burning down the majority of Norris's body and the alien that's kind of hanging from the ceiling. But then it gets to a scene where Palmer, the kind of mechanic and second string helicopter pilot on this crew of guys at this base, notices it first, Norris's alien snail-looking head thing.
Right.
He kind of like looks, you gotta be fucking kidding. And yeah, that's when McCready just turns the flamethrower on and burns the hell out of that.
He lets that burn a little longer, too.
yeah.
But all of a sudden, no one's suspicious of Mac
No,
anymore.
he kind of saved the day here.
Yeah. I also want to say, when Doc is on top of him, shocking him, you wouldn't do that in real life. You would be on the side because you're supposed to not have anything else touching the body.
Sure.
So he's straddling the body. He's going to get shocked, too.
Yeah,
It's a bad idea.
This scene is integral because this is where McCready puts 2 and 2 together, which gets us to the next scene. That parts of these things are kind of individuals. So the next scene I want to talk about is the blood test scene. This is just rife with tension in this scene.
It's intense. Yeah, so leading up to this, the doctor had gotten the idea that they can use their blood, put it into blood that they have in a fridge, and if anything happens to the blood, like if it starts morphine or something, then they know that person's affected. But as they go to the fridge to check it, the blood has been drained. The only people that had the key were Gary and the doctor, so they don't know how it could have gotten to the blood. So now they determine, or Mac gets the idea that because it dies from fire, if we heat the blood, it'll react poorly.
So yeah, he has Windows tie up everybody. Everybody has suspicion about them, but I think majority of the crew here suspect Commander Gary, Childs, Clark.
Because Blair kept saying it's Clark. Because you mentioned Blair's taken to like a shed and locked up in there, and he keeps telling Mac, be careful with Clark because Clark was next to the animals. He's the only one that was with that dog so long.
So yeah, it's pretty much everybody's tied up and or dead. McCready has Palmer tie up Clark's dead body and the doctor's body on a table. Everybody else is tied up to this couch except for Windows. I guess for some reason no one suspects Windows.
But they do test their blood first. Well, they test the 2 dead bodies, which lets Childs call Mac a murderer because he was
Clark
human.
did come at him. It was self-defense, though. Clark did come at him with the scalpel, but yeah.
Right.
And again, it just shows the fear that everybody has, not trusting anybody at this point.
Right. So Mac tests his own blood to show that he's not an alien, and everybody here, or at least Childs, says he doubts that the test is even real or would even work. And the audience, we don't know, is this really going to work? Then he tests Windows, so Windows could be up there helping him. And then they go through the lineup one by one. And it's, you're not lying. It is tense.
Oh, yeah.
This whole scene.
So, yeah, eventually tests Palmer's blood and call it a jump scare, whatever you want to call it. But it's just, it kind of breaks the tension as the blood he tests on this little petri dish jumps up to the ceiling. Then it cuts away to a scene where the blood is kind of moving around like the liquid metal in Terminator 2. Like it's just kind of moving on its own. And then it kind of cuts to Palmer. His face starts bulging, kind of melting off. Meanwhile, Childs and Commander Gary are sitting next to him on this couch, still tied together, screaming for their fucking lives. And they're trying to light the flamethrower. Of course, stepping back, and McCready's flamethrower is having...
Windows has a lot of trouble.
I don't know how I would act seeing something like this. You know, I have no idea.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's kind of stumbling backward, just stunned.
But Windows is a warrior. From the Warriors, man. He should have been tougher
was he
than
in the
that.
Warriors? Okay, I didn't know this. Okay. All right. So, yeah, McCready's having trouble starting his flamethrower, and the couch is jumping up and down, but eventually the imitation of Palmer breaks free and kind of jumps to the ceiling, and it's kind of clinging there, but eventually comes down as Windows tries to take charge and burn the hell out of the Palmer imitation. But he is just struck with fear as the head finally kind of splits open and just bites and
Oh,
picks
yeah.
up windows, and it just starts flinging him around with its head and these monstrous mandibles, flinging his body up and, against the ceiling and everything, eventually throwing it away against the board games. And then McCready eventually lights it on fire, managing not to light any of the other crew on fire. And it's another homage to the full body stunt that they do in the 1951 film. You have somebody in an asbestos suit just running, breaking through the wall, running into the Antarctic night outside the base. And of course, McCready has some of that dynamite that he then throws at the alien, and it explodes really fast, actually. I think when they shot that scene, Kurt Russell was like, yeah, that went off way faster than I thought it was. It actually scared him. But yeah, so they know that. They go back in and they test everybody else's blood. They test Commander Gary's blood last. I don't know if that's because they maybe suspected him of being the alien.
Yeah, he said, we're going to do Gary's
Okay.
last.
And then after they test Gary's blood, he has a great quote. And he says, I know you gentlemen have been through a lot. But when you find the time, I'd rather not spend the rest of winter tied to this fucking couch. So yeah, I mean, this scene just... I can't say it enough, man. The tension is there. But they actually gave us a little tell here to know on rewatch. If you look at everybody's eyes, all of their eyes have a gleam with the light if they're
Sure.
alive, except for Palmer's eyes. Any scene where it has a close-up on everybody's face, there's no gleam in Palmer's eyes, so he has dead eyes. So you might be able to use that in a later scene we're about to talk about. So the final confrontation. At this point in the film, it's McCready, Childs, Gary, and Knowles. Those are the only people that are surviving at this point, and they're going to check on Blair, who is the biologist who lost his shit and they isolated. So they go out there, and of course he's not
But
there.
his news still is. Because
Yeah.
when they went to check on him earlier, he's like, look, whatever happened, whatever I was going through, I'm fine now. I'm fine. But as they're talking through a noose.
Yeah, I love
which
that.
is amazing. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. You have a noose there. Are you fine?
Yeah. Oh, Wilford Brimley. Amazing. But yeah, so here they go. He's not there. And they go down. They find some loose wood flooring. And Blair's kept himself busy. Like in the ending of Who Goes There, the alien was also Blair. And it has made this fission engine. And he's working on a spaceship from all these parts from around the camp. And so you see, it kind of makes sense. While he went crazy, he destroyed parts of the helicopter. And they've been having issues with the generator. And basically, Blair's been getting out of the isolated cabin and taking parts to build, looks like a mini saucer.
Enough for one person to fit in.
Exactly, which is all it's needed. So at this point, they're down there. Knowles is actually looking at the base, and Childs is back at the base just kind of make sure nothing happens to the base. But there's many entrances to this building, as we have seen, and Blair appears to have gotten into the generator to turn off the power. And Knowles sees Childs leave, and we just see him kind of walk behind another building. We don't know what's going on with Childs at this point. So the rest of the guys blow up that little spaceship, and then they go in to do the final confrontation with the alien, Blair. So a lot of this scene was done in miniature. I think the scale was about 1 inch to 1 foot, or maybe 1.5 inch per foot. But yeah, just immaculate. And down there you see all these supplies, fuel for the generator. So that's where you could maybe suspect that they have. Not that character, the actual thing. Anyways, so they kind of go and they're just spreading around the dynamite. They have the detonation switch, but they split up to put the dynamite around the entire base. It's like a basement under the building is where the generator is. But one by one, they get taken out. First, Commander Gary, a mean-looking Wilford Brimley, a.k.a. Blair, kind of just puts his hand over Gary's mouth, muffling it, but also cool practical effects scene with his hand inside his mouth, wiggling around. He's killed or taken over.
Something you kind of see again in Hellraiser 5. Like, people just put their fingers through skin. But in that version, they seem to be enjoying it, which is weird.
Yeah, there's a lot of pain and pleasure type of things going on in Hellraiser. So
Yeah.
Then Knowles kind of goes off. We don't see him get killed by Blair.
It's the best plan. If, in doubt, split up. You'll survive.
They do it in every horror movie, or a lot of them anyways. Or they reference not to, and they end up doing it anyways.
Right.
It's an impressive scene. They use some stop motion in it, but giant alien bursts through. I think they said that it was like about 8 foot when they cast it, but they also did it in miniature to do the stop motion, where they used a little bit when it first busts out. But yeah, it looks like part Wilford Brimley, part like mantis insect. There's a portion that looks like a dog. So it's assuming all these forms that it's assumed prior to being on Earth, as well as what it's assumed on
It
Earth.
kind of reminds me of The Substance, which came out just recently, but I think is like a good example of practical effects where they actually have the actors in this blob formation thing. It's really good.
Okay, I still need to see it. I haven't seen it yet. Did it win an Oscar?
No, I think it. Well, it might have.
Or was
It
it
might
nominated?
have for like special effects if it did, but
Okay.
I think they won Best Actress for the Saturn.
Okay. Last thing I want to say at the scene, McCready throws his dynamite, and go ahead, say this
Yeah,
quote.
fuck you too.
Yeah. In classic Kurt Russell delivery that you see in a lot of Carpenter's films. That cuts to the final scene, which we'll talk about a little
Oh,
later.
not now.
Basically, it ends with McCready and then Childs coming
Yeah,
back.
he's like, "Where were you?"
And they have some
Yeah.
dialogue. And they talk about Childs went off because he saw Blair, and so he was trying to chase him, but he gets lost in the storm that's coming through while they're doing this. And they mention guidelines, kind of akin to like if you're doing cave diving, you have guidelines to like know where you go so you don't get lost. And if you're off those guidelines in the snow, especially at nighttime, it's hard to see where
Sure.
you're going. So yeah, it makes sense that Childs could be lost. The Indian's ambiguous, but let's talk about our takes on who's who for a little bit later. What do you
Okay,
think?
that's fine, but we'll talk about it later. Okay.
Yeah. So just to compare and contrast with Campbell's story had a much bigger cast, though none of them are all fleshed out because it's just a 12-chapter novella. The crew was like 37 men strong, whereas Carpenter's film, there's only 11. And in the book, they defeat the alien, and they assume everybody is human after doing the blood test. And the alien's making a spaceship. All that stuff's intact. So it's like, we defeated the alien, we saved humanity, and we just got a boost to our technology, like all in one go here on Antarctica. So it's very
Sure.
hopeful. Whereas Carpenter's is not hopeful.
They found the ship, though.
They did find the ship. They destroyed the ship. They mentioned in the book and also in the 1951 film when they find the spacecraft, they use thermite to melt the ice, but that has a reaction to the spacecraft's metal, basically melting it or destroying it. So they're not hopeful that there's anything that's worth salvaging out of
Right.
it. So yeah, I mean, how do you interpret the film?
I mean, it does a great job of really honing in on paranoia. Any film or video game that has come after this owes some debt to this movie because we know what it's really like to just suspect everybody around you. And the one that I know my kids have grown up loving, and I've seen some fun YouTube movies made of it, is Among Us. And there's like a TV show that had real actors playing it, like as if they were playing the game, but they were the characters. But I've seen some really low budget but really high quality films that have had people on a spaceship suspecting everybody. They just happen to have an outfit of one color each. For some reason, none of their uniforms are the same color, and they're spacing people because they can't trust anybody. And I love it. So when I first showed my kids this movie, the older two said they were interested. The middle one has watched it with me twice now. But when he first heard me, he's like, "Oh, that's like Among Us, the movie, right?" I'm like, "Sure." I mean, it came first, but yeah. And because of that, they like it. And then the special effects and everything, it's just great. And so I know that it didn't make a lot of money. And at the time, it was kind of panned. But I think it has gone on to be thought of as such a lesson on how practical effects can be done right. And I feel like in film, practical effects age well. Whereas a lot of times with CGI, it might look good at the time. 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road, it looks bad.
Yeah, I agree. I think this film has gone on to be Carpenter's most revered film since, which is funny because it was considered a flop back in '82.
Yeah.
Regarding the practical effects versus CGI or computer animated stuff that we get nowadays, I agree generally they do not age well. You know, the monster's on a green screen, so the actors might be looking at a green wall, or maybe if they're lucky they have a mock-up of what to look at. But seeing an 8-foot tall creature oozing slime, sprouting tentacles, it's going to put an impression on the actor far more than some guy from the art department holding an unpainted sculpt of the creature's face. Especially back then, because, you know, now so many movies are in the sci-fi horror realm now. You know, this is really when creature effects really took place, like in the late 70s into the 80s with the more grotesque, monstrous looking stuff. So they had something to work with and look at to actually instill a little fear inside the actor as they're doing their scenes. But going back to interpretations, when this movie was coming out, right, AIDS was starting to get spoken about on a societal level. And Blair, the doctor, speculates that how it could be transferred by just a drop of blood, getting licked by a dog's saliva on your face, all these things that they're speculating on. But yeah, I mean, when I grew up, it was pretty much known, but there was so much stuff about AIDS that was just untrue, that was being said and spread, and just really basic stuff about how a virus, how long it's viable outside the body and all that stuff. Also, you can look at the film as a take on individuality versus conformity.
Okay.
MacReady wants to fly helicopters and on his downtime drink and be alone, but the Thing wants to make everyone the same. You can see it in our society, chiefly in our politics, that there is pressure to conform to norms. Roadblocks have been put in place to, in a way, force people into certain ways of being. Maybe I'm reaching, but I like to also think about this film in that regard.
Sure. Well, one thing that helps the film a lot is that each one of these characters has a very unique personality. Like, I didn't think any of the characters were boring or just in the background. I felt like each of them was their own person, and I cared about their deaths. Like, even Palmer, when he died, he had a funny line earlier when he was like, all right, I'll fly over there. And he's like, no, you stay here. He's like, well, thanks for thinking about it, though. Like, I thought it was really good. So I think the movie does a really good job of making these all individuals.
Yeah. Like, it's an ensemble cast. One thing we didn't note, just going into the cast, let's talk about it. Some of the characters are smoking pot, and many of the characters are also drinking. MacReady is probably, he would be considered an alcoholic because, like, the first thing you see, he's drinking J&B Scotch. Blair, Wilford Brimley's character, is drinking Smirnoff vodka. But yeah, I mean, these people that work there kind of either the scientists that want to be there, and then you got the crew, and it's kind of a loner job you can do. So you kind of get the idea that MacReady and Palmer for sure are kind of very loner
But
types.
until MacReady is suspected by everybody, I feel like he's really respected by the crew. Like, I think they all like him.
Yeah, there's a moment where they're kind of freaking out and fighting, and Windows actually goes and tries to get one of the shotguns. They all catch up to him, and Gary has a gun on him, but they're already kind of suspecting Gary because the blood was being destroyed, and he's one of the people that can get into it.
They asked Norris to take command, and he's like, no, I don't think I want to do that. And Childs is ready. He's like, I'll take command.
Which is interesting because Norris is an alien. Or maybe he wasn't at that point. That's the thing. You don't know when, who is, but Norris is an alien later on. So yeah, it's just so interesting. Like, maybe he was an alien, and that's the thing. They talk about it. The alien has time on its side.
Yeah, because if anything,
because it can be frozen again.
Right.
I did find a script for the film, and it kind of lists some stuff about some of the characters. It mentions Palmer as slight 60s acid damage.
That is funny.
Definitely kind of looks the part. Let's talk about legacy. So yeah, as you mentioned, it did not have the best box office return. Opening weekend, it was about 3.1 million. And worldwide, I don't know exactly what that counted, if that's North America, Canada, and I know it was dubbed in German, maybe Norwegian, but any European listeners, if a movie comes out in America, is it immediately dubbed or do they just show it in English over there? Yeah, I don't know how it's done. Worldwide, back then, it made about 20 million total on its theatrical run, which deems it as a box office failure. At the time, critics chewed a new asshole. During a couple of the interviews I watched, they referred to Carpenter as a pornographer of violence.
Right.
I don't agree with, but anyways. In retrospect, a lot of people see this as just ahead of its time as far as how it was done, the effects. The paranoia is just the creme de la creme here, in my opinion. Another thing to note when this movie came out, as mentioned, June 25th, 1982, a little bit more than a week before, E.T. debuted on June 11th, 1982. Kids movie, more positive outlook on aliens.
It was a fun movie.
I know I liked it as a kid. I remember going to see it.
I still like it as an adult. It's filmed really beautifully, and it's something that I can sit down and watch with the kids at any time. It's fun.
Sure, he was on a roll at that point. Yeah, he had made Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Jaws. He did Raiders, right? Other notable things, it won the Saturn Award for Best Horror and Best Special Effects. And what do you think about the music?
I guess music does a good job if I don't notice it. Like I didn't notice it missing or anything. And I felt the tension throughout this whole movie, so I'm sure it was good. I didn't watch it with the intent of, okay, this time I'm listening to the music.
Yeah, if you've listened or seen any of his other movies, I mean, I think his most noted ones is the stuff with Sergio Leone, where you have the classic whistle, the woo woo woo, that one.
Oh, yeah.
Nothing stands out like that in this film, which is fine. He's not known for that. It's definitely, as mentioned, just he's known more for the atmospheric and sparse thing, and I think it fits well with a movie set in Antarctica. I like it. So, any behind the scenes facts you want to talk
I mean,
about?
I like what you wrote in the notes here about the title sequence. That title sequence is amazing.
The opening title is actually the same lettering font that they used in the 1951 film. They used, I didn't see how, but basically they did a combination of smoke, I'm assuming an upside down aquarium, so the smoke would kind of stay in there. And then they used a couple of different, kind of a black plastic trash bag on either side of the aquarium with the light behind one side. They burned off a plastic trash bag to kind of do the lettering reveal. It's pretty cool. It's definitely iconic, and I see why he wanted to keep that same
Oh,
opening.
yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, the Norwegian base that they fly to, that was the same base. They just shot from a different angle after they blew it up in the final confrontation. They mentioned that doing the movie, they probably couldn't do it the way they did because there'd probably be fire hazards with those flares dripping. Possibly could have caused a fire. Another thing I learned is that Tobe Hooper was first approached by Universal to direct the film prior to Carpenter being attached. It took all the special effects, makeup, and all those scenes over a year to do. And I believe they spent close to 1.5 million of the budget just on the practical effects and makeup and
That's
stuff.
pretty cool.
As we mentioned, they did make a movie. At the time, when you saw the trailers, did you think it was just a remake or a prequel? It was
Did.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought it was a remake, and I think everybody went into it thinking it was a remake and being like, how could you remake this? And then it was like, oh, it's a prequel. Okay, interesting.
Yeah, because there was a time where they were kind of doing these remakes. It eludes me, but I know there were some other films that they were kind of remaking.
They did The Fog.
Oh, yeah. They would do a twist that it was kind of like a prequel or a sequel, but they would kind of make you think that it was the remake. So it's kind of a prequel. They also, in 2002, they made a video game that got Carpenter's blessing as close to a sequel as we'll get. I have not played it.
Sure, you just got to pay that man money, and he will do anything. In fact, I know we haven't talked about it yet, but he says if you give him $1,000, he'll explain the ending to you.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Read some interviews where he thought maybe his life would be different if the thing performed better.
Sure, I think he's done well for himself, though.
Yeah, no, I mean, he went on to continue his career for sure.
And his music career has a lot of fans.
Which I wanted to mention. You briefly discussed it in episode 14.
With Jesse.
And he did not care for the music.
Which blew my mind. You got to be kidding me.
Which everyone's tastes are different.
Yeah.
But Carpenter's father was a music professor, so it's not like Carpenter was completely clueless about you know, making a soundtrack for a movie.
I saw a podcast, and I'm sad that I don't know the name of it because it was really good, where they were like, you're a Halloween fan, right? And the guy's like, yeah, I'm a Halloween fan. I love Halloween. He goes, great. I'm going to play you every score besides part 3 and in a random order, and you're going to be able to tell me which one it was. And he 100% nailed it. I was like, there's that much difference between them? But little subtle things. He's like, oh, that's H2O. Or he's like, oh, that's Halloween 5. And I'm like, what the heck? Like, I thought that was kind of cool.
But they also did release in the early 90s, Dark Horse Comics did a couple of little mini issue series on what came after. So, all right, let's get down to it. Who's who at the end, man? What's your take? Give me your take.
So, earlier in the movie, they are told that they should prepare all their meals individually, eat from cans, not share food or drink with anybody else, because they're afraid that this could transfer from saliva. They don't know, right?
Yeah, Fuchs is going over Blair's notes since Blair's isolated at that point. But he's also, reading the notes of somebody who's also gone mad. So take that with a grain of thought.
Sure. Mac has in his hand a beverage, but he doesn't actually drink it. He hands it over to Childs, who does then drink it. And if he was human, he wouldn't have.
Yeah, he kind of does a little smirk laugh there,
right.
too.
Also, his breath, you see a lot of cold breath coming out of Mac's mouth. And there's barely any cold breath coming out of Childs, which is one thing that people think is a symbol that Childs is not human. Also, a lot of people theorize that Mac put gasoline in that drink to see if the alien would know what gasoline tasted like, or not even notice that that's what he's drinking. And Mac does have a little smile on his face after Childs drinks it. Like if him doing that gave knowledge, whether that's just because he tried to share a drink or because he put something in the drink that he shouldn't be able to like as a human. Yeah, so that's my viewpoint on it. I know there's other theories. You mentioned the eyes, right?
Yeah, so you think your take is that Childs is an alien?
It is my take.
Oh, okay. I know it's a bleak ending. I think it's bleak because they're going to die.
Yeah.
I don't think either of them are going to be an alien. I think they're both human in my take. I don't know, the positive of the bleak endings, I guess, is that they're both not an alien. Because you do, as I mentioned, the gleams. You do see gleams in both of their eyes in that scene. It's less so. It's mostly on Mac, but there is a moment where you do see a gleam in Child's eyes as he's talking. And that's because he's also kind of more darkly lit in that scene, which is also probably why you don't see breath. So, yeah, because you see Blair with breath as well. So the alien can breathe out breath when he's isolated in that room. So, yeah, that's what makes the movie so great, is that, yeah, we can have these discussions about the ending and who's who. So you do not think, as I've read other people's takes and saying that they're both aliens, and it's like,
right, I don't think they're both aliens, but I think humanity is doomed. I think whether or not he escapes now, whether or not, in my opinion, the alien's alive, and in my opinion, he might just hibernate again. And when discovered, will take over the Earth because we're not prepared. And John Carpenter says if that alien makes it to any society, the Earth is doomed.
Sure, yeah, that he calls this movie part of his Apocalypse trilogy, which maybe we'll talk about the other films at some point. But yeah, like you mentioned, it's actually predated graphics of technology they didn't have. But of course, in our hindsight, it looks like it's Atari graphics with the cell that's taken over another cell. I think it even spits out the percentage chance of humanity surviving. Or was it percentage of who's infected at that?
No, I think it was percentage of humanity surviving if it got to the mainland.
Okay. Yeah, they ponder that also in Who Goes There. I assume Campbell, being around academics, got the ponderings of scientific minds, so he definitely has that in the story. Because they're so worried in the book, they ponder if it has taken over a flying creature in its past that it could just transform into, say, some kind of winged creature from another planet. Why doesn't it just transform into that and just fly away? But they postulate that creature might be built for a different atmosphere, different gravity.
Sure, that makes sense. Like it's turning into us to survive.
On this environment. Yeah, exactly. So obviously we don't get the inner monologue of the alien, but yeah, it's definitely smart enough to think it knows not to just strike out at everybody. Like in Among Us, if you've played that, you don't just start immediately killing people. You got to find your right time.
No, you do. You just take them out. You get a good big group together. If enough people are together, no one can see who killed anybody. Someone just died. It was yellow. No, it was blue.
Yeah.
Definitely blue. So I have a couple questions. Yeah. So what the heck was with Mac's hat, and why was he wearing it sideways? Like the brim is up here, blocks no sun at all, and the other brim's that way. But if you turn it sideways, it looks like one of those goofy Western hats that are only tourists buy. I'm like, but it looks like he put that on and then turned it sideways. Like, what is he doing?
Yeah. I don't know. I think Carpenter just said, "Here, wear this," and he kind of just went with it.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, I think listening to the commentary, Kurt Russell, they was just like, that hat. And it just kind of seemed like Carpenter just wanted to wear that hat for some reason. So,
that's just pretty funny. Margo and I talked about Keith David in episode 55, which is Pitch Black, which we titled Disciples of Keith David. I don't think he had a lot of disciples in this one. Not a lot of people were willing to follow Childs.
Yeah. There's actually one scene we didn't talk about, just as a cutaway thing, but let's talk about that autopsy
scene. The first one, or when...
The first one, when they bring back the burned corpse.
Yeah, I mean, they open it up. They say that the organs seem like normal organs. Nothing's wrong with them. But they look at the outside creature, and it's just deformed like crazy.
Yeah. Multiple appendages, as mentioned, like the face kind of morphing in. But it was like a mixture of different effects. It was a sculpture on top of practical effects, on top of actual animal organs. Yeah, they actually pull out a liver and some bovine intestines as well. And In the commentary, Carpenter mentions that Brimley was, I guess, used to being out in the country. He called him a cowboy. So he's used to going hunting and, cleaning his own animals. So he was like right at home doing that scene, just like kind of pulling it out and explaining what it was.
I saw a quote online where someone said, "Is it really a horror movie if there's no nudity?" And I'm like, I don't want nudity in this movie. Like, it's all men. I don't know. Like, what the? It was just the weirdest thing I heard. And I wanted to just bring that up. I was like, what?
I think that's just kind of goes back to kind of horror's exploitive past, like just, let's get the actress and we gotta have this scene. We gotta have this scene.
She needs to take a shower. She gets dirty fighting. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then my final question. Should Rob Zombie make this one next?
I think if anyone tries to do a remake, use practical effects. That's all I'm going to say.
Oh, completely.
You got to use practical effects. If we ever do the 2011, we'll go in more detail about it, but it was panned because of that. I haven't seen it in a while, so I don't even know how it aged, but like you mentioned, we talked about Event Horizon. And you can clearly tell, I think the best part in that one was the floating fluid in the gravity drive room. You can do liquid and stuff like that.
Yeah, I will say in that prequel, the worst CGI was they had Mary Elizabeth Winstead's character. They were basically doing the look up. Your character is seen like the main frame of the ship in the alien ship. We're going to make it look amazing. Don't you worry. And I think she said in an interview, there was something practical there. She was told they're going to add some special effects. But what they did was this like, we don't have time to finish it. Put this stupidest looking thing you can get up there that's digital, and it looks horrible. But she looks like an awe. What is this amazing sight before my eyes? Because she's acting. Yeah. And it was so cheesy. I'm like, this is bad.
Yeah, it sucks as the actor. Like, I know I wouldn't have acted that. There's levels to my surprise and awe, It's like, oh no, I'm just looking like this is like God I'm looking at, and instead it's like this little ice cube or something. But yeah, if they ever do this, which Hollywood is kind of want to do with remakes and known quantities instead of trying new IP, yeah, practical effects. You can meld some stuff with that. I guess, yeah, going on that, sorry, just came to my mind, is that there is a deleted scene where it's the final confrontation where the Blair alien comes up, and they shot it with a lot of stop motion, but they cut that because everything until that point was practical effects. But they thought that if you had that scene with the stop motion animation, that it took so much. So it was just a little bit with the tentacles that burst out that they kept. But they actually had a whole scene where it was kind of moving around before MacReady threw the dynamite at it. So it's kind of hard to blend that stuff. I don't know. Maybe we're at that point where you can now blend CGI with some practical effects better.
Some people do it well.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Can you think of any films that have done that? And done it well.
So Final Destination, the newest one, I would say if I'm going in order, part 1 and 2 use practical effects. Part 3 started using the CGI blood, and it looked pretty bad. Even though that, again, another Mary Elizabeth Winstead movie.
It's like you have
was a good one. I don't know what you're talking about. And I don't want Obi-Wan to come after me, okay?
Yep. He knows how to use a lightsaber, man.
Right. Then part 4 came along, and it was the worst. I listened to interviews that said a lot of it was the writer's strike. They knew the writer's strike was about to start. So they shot out a script so fast that they could start filming without the need for writers. And since all the writers were on strike, they couldn't correct anything in the script rather than waiting to put out a good film. So the effects on that one were bad. It was also doubly worse because they did an After Effects 3D on top of it. So it only works in the theater. But everybody that's going to watch the film for the rest of time is not going to the theater to watch this film. So it doesn't look that great at home. Things are flying at you, but they're not flying at you. But part 5 brought it back. They did use CGI still, but it was done better and it aged well. Part 5 is really good. Okay. And then the newest one that just came out called Bloodlines, which broke the Bloodline curse because Hellraiser Bloodlines, not great, even though I love it. Pet Sematary Bloodlines, not great. There's more examples, but every horror movie up until this one with the title Bloodlines did not do well and is seen as, why'd you name it that? That's horrible. But this newest one did CGI and practical together, and they did really good at it in Bloodlines, so I'm excited about that.
Okay. Well, Outro?
Thank you, everybody, for listening. We have been Nightmare Echoes. We have new episodes every Monday. If you'd like to give us a 5-star review, please do that on your podcast app of choice. Hope you hear us again. Bye.
See ya. Does he have a flamethrower?
It's a
at this point, or
flamethrower.
Does he just have a lighter?
Oh, no. It
Yeah.
is a
Oh no, it's a flare.
flare.
He has a
Thank you.
flare.
I'm making sound effects.